Wethersfield schools, you had people, intercities, who made confessions to me. And then I called up your school. And then, for example, that's why NBC, Connecticut News, pretended I sent emails when we had communications over the phone. And he left a whole bunch of recorded messages when I responded to it, because he was being coached by the standing or former police chief, who was police chief for years and 1 year before that. But before that, with the same house, and with the name Cololo involved with them calling over the phone, switching names with an Officer Sullivan. Then they confessed they only have one Officer Sullivan. It wasn't a man, so they have a male Officer Sullivan who said he was Officer Sullivan from Wethersfield town offices, which is also involved with the same people through time, involved with predicate acts, intercities. A whole bunch of people on and off Central Connecticut State University from Wethersfield campuses I never had a conversation with in my life. Pretended other. On and off CCSU behind my back. On and off Trinity College behind my back. On and off campuses I didn't even go to behind my back. With Middlesex Community College before I even went there. There are a whole bunch of police forms. It is clear as day how they keep the locations, areas, and states criminally foreign influence, delusions, raw identity theft / fraud roles. What is slavery about? Identity theft, fraud. We'll put that up, not white supremacists. How could it be white? They're playing a game. They're playing a game. They're keeping it as the news, the fake news, the quote, fake news. They denied it. That's one proof of elections crimes. Elections crimes is not supposed to take their offensive, being Democrats or Republicans, offensively and make things up and hide things against American citizens and against politicians, because they have criminally foreign influence readings of statutes, including how they could lie about other candidates in elections. Like for example, unions. Union families are also involved with overt criminal enterprises on and off job sites with timed on and off campuses, because they have remote uses of investigators and those training them. So there is a the Cololo family. There's a Phil Cololo that Bob Chase confessed and recorded. He was supposed to show me a police report. He's one of the people involved with falsified police report about a Phil Cololo. I never had a class with him in my life. Never saw him inside my camp, on my school, any of them ever. One time I saw him outside from a distance, and I was walking. It was there, in other words, and I was like right before we graduated, and I was walking next to someone who's been pretending to know me, as people that made exceptions that I know them real briefly, but they pretended to know me in other contexts, as their roles with falsified police reports, wire crimes, and with like two Mendez police. Attached me to fake audio and video, fake ties to themselves, fake natures of ties to themselves, fake ties to others, fake natures of ties to others, on off the Wethersfield Police Department, on off New Britain Superior Court, on off campuses. I never had a class with either one of them in my life. I never saw either one of them at lunch or anything like that in my life. And that doesn't mean anything anyway. No, in other words, but that was also part of the people. In other words, when I was a kid, there were courts, judges, and prosecutors and their family members who were involved putting little fake things and pretending they're just testing or whatever they're doing, but they're not doing it. In other words, they're in the furtherance of a whole bunch of racketeering. Like, in other words, evidence worse than racketeering, evidence perception. Predicate acts, cover-ups, and delivery system methods, roles, and for motivations other than the ones that are using them remotely, increasingly. So that's how they used remotely originally. Still, when people ask what's slavery about, they'll blame it on other things, not with theories legitimately. When Milley says they could make theories, they have obligation to free science. Science has answers, doesn't need theories. And science shows their physical delusions also in the way as their roles with federal rules of evidence racketeering and worse than war crimes roles. So they make some people, they take a little piece from each country, because when they reach to the positions, to be leadership, they're incapable of it because they came through campuses, private and public, and homeschooled, recorded their family members and people next to them, everyone attached to fake words, others, and it tactically measures, and they maintain self-value what the breaching method maintains. They maintain its self-value for other motivations, natures, needs, interests. Juxtaposed, so that's increasingly screened, so you don't follow mandated law. So a bunch of people in the Britain Superior Court recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed how they use judges there remotely since I was a kid. As the same people on off Central Connecticut State University involved with predicate acts with a detective Samuda, and he switched names with a real arresting officer, and then he pretended he was the arresting officer, came into the court and pretended that. From a distance, there was a black woman judge using your guys' language, and these are also people involved with like KKK themed military police, actually involved with predicate acts with those hate groups, actually involved with identity thefts and frauds with them. See, they're just maintenance and roles with identity thefts and frauds in my area, and with the families that answer the police for the Wethersfield police through time. And there's a guy with them I need to get the name of. He's tied to a Dr. Dewberry and a Dr. Dingleberry and a whole bunch of other ones that I never had a conversation with. One of the Dr. Dingleberry or Dewberry took the words of some other kid, started a fight verbally, in other words, and then they pretended that was what I did. That's another one of the things they do. They also automatically just pretend told fake conversations with themselves and ties to themselves. A whole bunch of people who work at Hartford Hospital that are tied to houses on my street, involved with them with fact-cheating nature-oriented predicate acts. They're also criminally pretending it's personal against the people on my street. They brought them up. I didn't bring them up. I told you guys that there's a Dillon family that was recorded. That's what's recorded. He's communicated with me non-verbally, had other people confess verbally, and he demonstrates non-verbally. That's one of the things the branches do, where and how they have roles with child abuses, identity thefts, and frauds. And remote uses of the houses on and off Two-Rod Highway are also recorded, confessed, and demonstrated by a Fianza family and others on off the state judicial branch offices in that little road right next to it. And that Route 3 that goes along it. All along Route 3 are people involved with little instances of identity thefts and frauds where they were influenced to it unnaturally. And that are relevant as roles with on-off campuses predicate acts of juxtaposed natures of child abuses, and they tell people to pretend to others are making theories while they're stacking fabricated audio and video because they're caught. I didn't ask them to fabricate. I didn't, they should, pick one name in sequence and getting onto paper. Respond for Robert Rodriguez brought up a scalora next to the principal child abuser's campus. Wethersfield police at other instances brought up the scalora name too, and people intercities did. They've been involved, attaching me to fake locations, fake words, fake ties to other people with people next to the state judicial branch offices, on and off Wethersfield Pizza, involved with sequence shifts with them, identity thefts and frauds. Their roles with a health class project I did, where I caught courts and police forms, criminally foreign influence, delusions raw. That's what Jim Crows were a lot about. Criminally foreign influence, fact-cheating nature, roles, and delusions raw. But they were simultaneously federal rules of evidence as predators, as the only people that were allowed to speak for the rules. So they increasingly could not speak for themselves and afford defenses of ourselves from such a method of criminal insidiousness. Such a sophistication of it, they could only understand through needing to hide, as roles as sophistication needing to hide life aggressions, understanding them first and only relative to how they could understand it. The whole base of logic since before cars. in the suburbs across America. What was modeled out was since before cars. As roles with the torture and slavery of our founding parents, sickly distinctly from the people they hurt the most with laws. They call it, it's not, oh, it's a law. That's fake. It's a law. It's a law, but they're using truth for lies. Still, originally and then. In other words, that wasn't the law. That was a breaching method, a predicate acts delivery system method. So if anyone, there was laws against what you could say, and you had to say other, in other words. And if you didn't say that, then everyone's going to, that's against the law, everyone's going to sense it. So they made everyone incapable of unity. And simultaneously, increasingly incapable of independence. Anything invisible but still discernible, like unity, is only negative value nature by itself. It's only value nature if you can use it what is independent simultaneously, because that shows you what's simultaneous. Because that's what everything's about, what's hyper simultaneous. What is it? Will only stay positive unto itself. All exceptions, exception nature, appear to be in demonstration of other, are just in demonstration of how it is exception nature. How its method of making more of its identity of volume is observable, per where and how it is 5 bound, distinct identities of sequence/simultaneous nature. One exception is how it is 3 bound. For example, the order of the finite, the order of what is active, and the order of what is progressive, where we are temporary. Those are 3 identities of sequence/simultaneous nature as a quality of diffusion. There's also the value of sequence before that. And there is a value of sequence that will always be greater. They're coming, already value here now, and coming more and more, because it's becoming more and more value, unceasingly, and only increasingly. So there's a little method where they have people make do instances, because they have a perspective onto the sense and sensibilities of everyone, where everyone speaks to other people, other things, others, and integrity never had integrity. And they knew it would have to hide live progressions. They knew they could use all the identity of the ground, locations, areas, and states, names, titles, locations remotely, originally and still, effectively. And that's discernible in relationship to opinions. You could pretend it's just my opinion and you agree other. You agree that since before founding, since before cars, the pathology of homes, the means to afford them, the value nature system, it's not. You think it's, some of you think it's not criminally foreign influenced. Some of you think it's not delusions raw. Some of you think that's all that we could do. Instantly. All you have to do is keep it real. Tell no lies. It's a tactically denatured identity of the ground, locations, all of them. Now, how are you going to have a car equally if your people stacked in New York City? Oh, where you have to go? Oh, so your life on the street. They want and need to keep this something other, an ism. Something like that, or white supremacy. White is what? How many cultures are white? Well, in England, look how little England is. Way smaller than the British Empire. It has when you look at things simultaneously, one of the reasons that phenomena existed was most probably and demonstrably because English had already been existed. And see, but all formal education reception was already criminally foreign influenced. It was already needing to speak for positive and negative per the positions, but increasingly incapable of doing it honestly and properly, and without criminally foreign influence uses of their premises, treatments, criminally foreign influence of their delusions too, increasingly present because of the increasingly effectively, tactically denatured educational system /S. I tell it best, but long. Boxing, said all at once. 2 and 4th, well, 2 and 4th, come home. So in other words, Wethersfield campuses and the news media attach me to fake words, fake locations, because they have private, interbranch, and retired and standing. They already went through a whole bunch of cases where they made positive and negative treatments. And where they had roles at the locations as the predators. And then they had to do little tricks to make it look like other people did what they do. Would they further? Oh, we're going to do the economy, this family, these are good, these are people, they do the coding stupid, simple. Just get more and more expensive because of that. And more shut people out. More and more consume their time. With games, they're preventing mandated law, pretending it's for other motivations. They're preventing writing, interbranch when you go to courts. They're using that so they were in this location, we're just going to attach them with fake audio and video. They've been doing that since founding. Pounding drums, fake as day, pretending they could speak for little victims. It's the only time they know they can be unchallenged, when they go up and put the pose. Even as victims themselves, because they don't know how to respond. So they want to fight about that without leaving out, if they want to fight. No one wants to fight about that. But some of them do, because offensively, constantly, increasingly to all locations, areas, and states, there are people they need to block correlation, use of correlation. They need to block the short words of. They need to block the revelations that would bring in other people. There is no integrity. So, leading up to the World Trade Center attack, in that context and sense, what was using and is using all kinds of cases every single day. They have a complete remote possession over all natures of courts, originally still incapable of defending themselves as the victims they were raised to be, victim predators, specifically incapable of defending themselves and affording the defenses of ourselves, where and how it counts, where we are fact-cheap nature, where and how we are identity /IES. I tell it best, boxing, science, shared, and identity. Okay, 17 minutes, 42 seconds. So please make sure that we get a response, because number of Wethersfield campuses, and I don't know this Spada family, they've been, in other words, everyone on that street has been spreading lies and rumors about me, and through others, through time, because their roles with their families on off the campuses, with these judges, like with this Delafair family, and with a